So thank you, Eric. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, speakers. Really happy to have you here, and all of you that came to join us. The NYC iguazio community that we're forming. This is one of a series of events that we'll be holding here. I mean, we already did a couple of events in New York, but we'll be continuing to do that. Every time we'll pick a different topic. This time it's the serious topic of data challenges across different industries, and also how the academic world is trying to fix that, right, Michelle? Before we drive to Ithaca tonight. We will be holding also events around technology, open source stuff, our product, but tonight we're not going to talk about iguazio at all. We're talking about, right, so we're not selling, only the people in the back over there. And over there too. But we're talking about serious stuff, data challenges. I prepared a few questions, but I hope that the font is not too small for me to read. But I remember that. Also, just to remind everybody, this is Strata Week, so there's the event happening here at Javits, and if you really want to talk about iguazio more, we have a booth there, 429, right? Where you can ask questions. But that's it for iguazio tonight, maybe. And I'd like to start with JP. Actually, we haven't done introductions in terms of the company, so why don't we go one by one? Ron, start with you.
Sure, so hopefully you can hear me okay. Great, so I'm Ron Guida, part of a company called Equinix, arguably one of the largest data center owners, providers in the world, with over 185 of those in strategic locations. And also we have an incredible interconnectivity amongst the data centers and amongst the public clouds.
I'm David. I work for the London Stock Exchange Group. And we are like a global company that provides financial service infrastructure. So we run the London Stock Exchange, another market called Turquoise. We own the entire Italian market structure stack, from the companies that list the securities, clear the securities, and trade the securities. We own the Russell FTSE complex. So if you know the Russell 1000, Russell 2000, the FTSE products, so we have a huge index business. We clear through our London clearinghouse huge swaths of Europe, and we are the largest clearer of interest rate products in the world. So we sit on these enormous, complicated data sets.
I'm Jean-Pierre Abello with Nielsen. Nielsen is a company behind the Nielsen TA ratings. We're a very well-established company. We've been around about over 100 years. We're in 106 countries. And today what Nielsen does is measures the consumer. It measures what you watch on TV, what you listen to on radio, what you experience on the web, on mobile, and also what you buy in the stores. And all of that is put together and analyzed with the use of both panels and Equinix panels and census data to produce our ratings products, which drive a very large part of the advertising industry, especially in the US. In the US alone, the Nielsen ratings drive over $100 billion worth of media advertising. But we play a very large part of the media ecosystem, including the web. And going forward, there's going to be a lot more data being generated from a whole new class of devices that used to be offline before, which is the Internet of Things.
This is a long question I have for you around that. So we'll get to that when we talk about.
Hello, my name is Michelle Lee. I'm the director of the Data Science and Business Analytics program at MIT. It's a new degree program. We just launched 2 years ago, but it's spawned out from the Operations Research Center at MIT, which is the #1 doctoral research program in operations, which has been around for over 50 years. So I really enjoy it, and I look forward to meeting all of you and answering questions.
Hi, I'm Ron Papka, and I work for CureX. I'm the chief data scientist. CureX is an FX ECN. We trade foreign exchange, and our exchange itself has some interesting liquidity properties that are really desirable to asset managers, pension funds and corporates as well as insurance companies. Before CureX, I was the chief data scientist and chief data officer for Citi's investment banking and sales and trading operation, or Citi Markets.
Excellent. So back to you, JP, because you started talking about your grand vision, and it comes to, Nielsen today and 10 years ago and 10 years ahead is going to be very different with what you were telling me the other day about the move from offline to online and how that impacts your business. So why don't you share with us your vision and how you're going to use data in a different way moving forward?
Right, so my role in the company basically is looking forward to the future, looking at the things that we're not doing yet. And mostly looking at data we're not taking advantage of yet, and that's data generated by IoT, consumer devices especially. There's two classes of devices in the IoT space. There's the industrial side and the consumer side. The industrial side has been around for a long time. It's really an evolution of the M2M space. It's all the machinery in place and connected in the industrial space, things like wind turbines, jet engines, that kind of stuff. But that's already producing a lot of value. It's going to produce a lot of cost savings, efficiency improvements. In the consumer space, we have a whole class of devices that are coming online now: the smart home, wearables, connected cars, smart cities, which are starting to have the potential to generate data about what consumers do in everyday lives besides watching stuff on TV and buying stuff on the web and going shopping in the stores. And all of that data is important because it enables to create a more accurate picture of who you are as a consumer. And if we understand you better as a consumer, then we can segment you better. And the whole advertising industry is based on segmenting the population. So ads are not being shown to everyone, but they're shown to the right people at the right time based on what they're looking for. And today we have this thing we call targeted advertising on the web. It's kind of been working so-so. It's better than showing a same ad to everybody, but what we have today is ads that can follow you around, that are creepy and don't really understand what you're thinking. So a lot of consumers are resorting to ad blockers and all kinds of techniques to avoid seeing those ads, and that's a major threat to the advertising industry.
And so that grand vision, what are the barriers that you see today from you to implement? Technology, regulatory stuff.
So sorry, repeat the question.
So we had that brand vision, and obviously you said that we're not there yet. So what are the barriers that you have on the technology side, maybe the regulatory side, that prohibit you from getting there today?
Sure. So the consumer IT industry today is Nielsen. It's mostly startups that make products that they're hoping consumers will use, and they're just trying to get something that works, that hopefully consumers will find enough value to pay a fairly high price to use. We're talking about $200 door locks, expensive webcams, security systems. These systems are effectively not mainstream in the price point. And the reason they're expensive is because the data that they generate is not being monetized. If the data was used in the same way that it is on the web, and on the web, all the services that you use are typically free. You don't expect to pay for every web search that you do, every email that you read, every news article that you read. That's because of data produced by you using the services, just paying for the services for advertising. So in the physical world, in the consumer devices, we are not there yet. We have a business model that's much more similar to the consumer electronics space. It's people buying expensive devices that the manufacturers are hoping they will replace in a couple of years, full price, and it's not really what I think the internet is all about. When we think about the internet, there's three main waves. There's the first wave was desktop, the second wave was mobile. Now the third wave, the Internet of Things, is pretending to be the internet the same way the first two are, but we're not. If you look at it, it's not the same type of industry. The first two past a lot cheaper and more accessible to everyone around the world. You know, you had before you had Wikipedia, you had Encyclopedia Britannica, before you had email, you had snail mail. It was more expensive, it was harder to use, it was not accessible to everyone the same way. The web is accessible. So the web is really, the internet is really a mechanism to democratize services and technologies to everyone, to bring them to the mainstream. And Internet of Things today is not quite there yet. It's still a very premium consumer electronics industry for the people who can afford it and buy toys and throw it away after a couple of years. The only way to really make those accessible in the same way the web and mobile has done is to move, I believe, first to a service model. If you subscribe to your hardware products instead of buying them, then it becomes a lot more like the web and mobile. For example, Volvo just last week launched a new service called Care by Volvo. The XC40 is the first car that you can subscribe to. Instead of buying it or leasing it, now you can, just like with your phone, you pay a monthly fee, you keep it for 1 year, and you get a new car for a year. But I know that appliance manufacturers like Bosch and others are thinking of doing the same model with home appliances, with fridge, for example. Instead of buying a new fridge every 10 years for $3,000, it's likely to be obsolete in 2 because it's a small fridge. You could instead subscribe to the fridge as a service, paying $25 to $50 a month, and that fridge will be able to collect a lot of data about what you eat, what's in every shop. And I know that's something I'm thinking of, maybe we can use that to do automatic ordering of products, but the real value is not there. The real value is knowing what's on the shelves, understanding the type of food consumer you are, and use that information to really put you on the right segment, profile you a lot better so that much more effective advertising can be delivered to you in a visual media. So that would mean effectively less more advertising, which is useful to the consumer, potentially less advertising, because it will be less weight. And that advertising could pay for the price of your services. It could pay for your fridge cooling service in the same way you pay for your email or your news on the web today. And we will move, once we get to this paradigm, we'll move to a world where physical devices, when they become smart and connected, effectively become free.
So it's John Lennon's vision, no possession. Right? Because
no,
everything is free because of advertising.
Everything becomes a service, and the product is good. The data you produce using a service, pay for a service. And that's the
Thank you. So one of the other problems that we see is the skill gap. And MIT, as usual, steps in and fixes it. So, Michelle, why don't you tell us how you conceived the new program that I should pronounce MBN, right?
Yes, MBN. Yes.
MBN.
It's MBA with the critical N, is how we say it. But basically, we launched the new analytics master's degree in response to the Internet of Everything, to the Internet of Things, to the proliferation of huge amounts of data in the industry and in academia. So as I mentioned before, our Operations Research Center has been in existence for over 50 years. However, it mainly trains doctoral students, so PhD students. We have over 100 students in the MIT Operations Research and Data Science Center. However, those students mainly go into academia, and we typically don't like for them to go into industry, but some of them do. But there was major push from companies like Nielsen, like financial services companies, like McKinsey, Bain, Booz Allen Hamilton, who all came to us. They sat in the boardroom of MIT and said, do you have people with these data science skills? Please send us more people. And we said, yes, we're launching this new program for students going into the industry, not going into academia, this master's degree program. But last year, our program was only 16 students as our pilot class. And this year, our student base is 30 students, and we're planning to grow to 60 students. But every company that approached us, said, we will hire all 60 students at the same time, all of them. And I said, oh no, you can't do that. So
if anyone wants to apply here, just tell them that their chances are very slim, right?
Well, we do encourage strong applications, but it is very competitive. Our student profile is very, very strong. We have a strong brand name, so we're very lucky. Our average GPA is 3.9 out of 4.0, coming either straight from undergrad or from companies from industry. They typically have STEM majors, so science, technology, engineering, and math. We have a strong domestic student body, but also international. We're about 50-50. We're trying to work on the female population. We have 33% female, which is pretty good for the industry, but we're trying to get better, as well as underrepresented minorities. And in terms of where our students are going, they're going to mainly consulting and technology companies. The average salaries we're seeing them skyrocketing. They're almost as high as our MBA students. So the demand is there. There's a huge supply-demand imbalance in the data science industry, which is good for everyone here. I saw a statistic recently that said there was a demand of 700,000 people per year in data science, and by 2020 there would be 2 million people in shortage for the data science industry. And wow. I believe that was an article in Forbes. So
one of the things was around getting the practical experience even during the program. So you work with industry on that, with companies. So can you elaborate on that too?
Yes, so sure. So we have a very interesting curriculum. Ours is a 1-year degree master's, but part of the master's is a guaranteed work experience with a sponsored company. So we have several sponsoring companies like McKinsey, eBay, Nordstrom, Amazon, BMW, those types of companies. And they sponsor students for a guaranteed 7-month internship, which when you're accepted to the degree program, you're guaranteed the summer internship, and it offsets their tuition by $20,000. So it's a great deal, yes. And the companies get the students to work with them, and the students get the work experience. So when they graduate in September. So they start in September and they graduate in September. They're ready to go into the workforce, fully prepared with that summer internship. Excellent.
And iguazio is actually going to work with you in some of these programs.
Yes.
You also have the lab in Israel, right?
Yes, we also have practical experiences that are not as long, so they're mainly the fall or the spring semester. So we have an Israel lab where our students work with Israeli tech companies during the fall semester, and then they actually travel to Israel to meet with the companies and advise them on strategic projects for the winter break period. And we have other projects as well.
Excellent. I promise not to talk about the iguazio, so sorry. Ron, Papka. So you mentioned City, you mentioned CureX. Big difference. Similar problems?
Oh no, the problems are very different. So I used to work for a company that, when I started, had 300,000 people, and now I work for a company that has 30 people. And the biggest differences that I noticed is my hair stopped falling out, I think, and it stopped turning white, I believe. We'll find out. It's a matter of time. But no, I mean, in terms of data, it's really a night and day situation. So in the large organization, especially large financial organization, just a couple of years ago, there's been a big regulatory push, which led to sort of centralization, not necessarily centralized, but could be virtually centralized organization of data that needs to have access to all your data in one place, to be able to do risk in a reasonable fashion, to be able to actually keep track of all your trades and your assets and liabilities, to be able to do that in real time. Put a lot of stress on the financial industry, and we're still seeing that. Like the likes of BOA, even Citi to a certain extent, are still trying to do very, very simple things that if you worked at a technology company, you would think like, what are they doing? In a small company, everything's real simple. There's no real sophisticated release process with all the checks and balances. I mean, we don't have a release cycle. It takes 2 weeks to a month's worth of time to get some 2 lines of code out. But in terms of the data needs, they end up being very focused and very, very streamlined. What I'm finding with CureX in particular, CureX is we trade FX spot. We're actually we're an aggregator of liquidity from all the large major banks. And so what's interesting about CureX is that we deal in the microsecond world. We deal with tick and time series, right, at the microsecond level. The data are huge. To try to do data science on that type of data looks a lot like the IoT world. I mean, it's just too much to do anything in 1 day's time. You need a lot of compute power to be able to build predictive algorithms, etc. But what I do find interesting about it is that that at first, I'm in a startup, by the way, so actually I've been in business 6 years, but we pivoted towards the FXCCN about 2 years ago. So at first, everything was like batch oriented. This is outside the ECN, like you keep track of what's going on in the ECN. To be able to provide pre and post-trade analytics on the ECN is all batch. But as the ECN is starting to grow, it's pretty obvious that we need everything in real time. So being able to monitor things in real time become much more important as your client base grows. And that's the type of pain that we're experiencing now. It's something that I think the financial market solved in a couple of the silos, particularly the high-frequency trading areas of rates, equities, and FX. But if you look at the other asset classes, which is really the bulk of assets, that those things are more, it's a more slower cadence. But again, in the smaller company, I think it's easier to navigate. In the larger company, it just becomes, it takes it's a lot more effort to try to do the most simplest things.
So continuing on that, stuff that we have seen, both in small and big, was when customers realized that their data warehouse appliances are probably not what will work for them, and they jumped on the Hadoop bandwagon. And then what happened?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it was an evolution. I mean, even before Hadoop, so it went from we're doing things on local databases, local servers, it could be Linux-based, it could be Microsoft-based, to, oh boy, we have billions and billions of records and we need to actually get something out within 15 minutes. That turned into a need for these special purpose appliances like the keys, etc. And the problem with those devices is that the storage is limited, right? You're looking at petabytes globally, have to be replicated globally, they need to be everywhere. It became very, very hard to do it in that environment. And the real play in the financial industry was to go to the Hadoop, HDFS storage, which was distributed. It was naturally, it was easy to replicate. But the problem with that was that it was hard to set up. I mean, I personally set up 2 4 petabyte clusters, one in the US and one over in Europe, and that took over 1.5 years to set up. And yeah, right. And then after that, then obviously everyone else wanted to use it. And as you start trying to justify the use of all these machines and actually start using those machines to do interesting things, the compute power, not necessarily storage, but to try to leverage the compute power, what you found is that these environments started clogging up. It was really hard to balance. It was really hard to load balance different processes in the storage. And so what I see happening is a move back to a device that just deals with storage. And to me, that makes the most sense right now.
Okay, thank you. We won't mention what the name of the device is, but Ron.
Sure.
So, Equinix, data center company, data services, how does it all fit?
So yes, one of the ways that it fits is that the cloud companies realized that they needed to be as close to a proximity of the networks themselves, as well as us, being the single tenant colo provider. And so we had a 8, maybe 10-year head start in terms of building out these technology parks in very densely populated areas. That resulted in, certainly in financial services, Equinix has a super solid niche in the high-frequency trading world and lots of the different financial services. But in the efforts over the last 2.5, 3 years, the movement has been to figure out how to interconnect to the public clouds. So there isn't really, it would seem that we would compete, but actually we complement. We made some significant investments in figuring out how to interconnect to those clouds, especially if they're in our buildings. All the public cloud providers, including the ones we all know about, as well as some of the others internationally, have also realized, just like the big enterprises, they don't want to be in the business of maintaining and managing and growing those buildings. Not to mention they may have some carrier issues as well, so they utilize our facilities as well as maybe some of the areas that are just a natural connection. So that's really helped the aspect of growth. And we see, frankly, the things that, I can give you 2 examples, especially in the IoT and big data world. Companies like GE, they have the smart engines on most of their, some of their newer planes. And so it's essentially, they put servers in a bunch of the Equinix data centers so that they could spill over to, if they needed to a public cloud. But they have the Predix platform, which is their IoT platform. The engines talk to that platform, and they interconnect that with weather data, other flight data, so that they can react in near real time back to the plane to say, here's a better path. And so, and frankly, it's the idea of having that data at the quote-unquote edge. In their case, it's as close to the, the populous areas that those companies are at. That's one example. The other is in the airports themselves, the whole idea of collecting facial recognition data from various cameras, and then integrating that, or at least commingling that, or comparing that to some of the other databases around the crime databases that are out there for known criminals, and then again delivering that back to the site, in this case an airport, so that the decision can be made in near real time. So while we really look like somebody who would look to be a competitor of a public cloud, we're really more of an enabler. Not every workload is going to go to a public cloud.
Yeah, so that was my next question. So where do you see it stop? I mean, eventually, the extreme case would be everything is on the cloud, so I'm not sure what that does, but it's probably stopping somewhere. What
yeah, as long as there's a need for performance, security, at the edge, as close to the collection point, there'll be somebody like an Equinix will need to be there. As long as the interconnectivity, and I mean, it's, one of the other backbones of Equinix is they're completely carrier neutral. All tier 1 providers, in addition to any other provider, can be either at the point of presence in the physical building, or at least in the a close enough point. So that alone is something that's unique to Equinix.
So how do you define the edge from Equinix perspective?
Because
there's lots of different reasons for that.
We kind of have I think our buzz now is interconnected oriented architecture, which I'll put a plug in for iguazio, is an enabler in that regard for us, and there'll be more on that, I'm sure. But so we define it as close to the point of presence. So in that case, sort of where the device to the connectivity will be.
Excellent. David.
I'm last. What am I going to say?
All that crazy stuff you were telling me before. So let's talk about data strategies and complex organizations, because I mean you described it before. All these acquisitions, each one with its own data sets, and eventually there's this need to monetize it all. Where do you start, and what do you recommend for other companies? I mean, you've been doing that now for a while.
It's awful, and I wouldn't recommend it anywhere. No. It is worth it. So, I was trying to figure out where to start. So, I work in emerging technology, so I stumble across by accident the data, kind of like the data stuff that iguazio was offering for us, because it was an emerging technology. And when I was asking my technology student, why are we doing this, the guy had no idea. From a business standpoint, he just told me that our former boss thought it was really super cool. So we are kicking the tires on something super cool. So I'm kind of like, I'm neither a technologist nor a data scientist. So I'm kind of like, how am I going to get to the bottom of this? So my next layer up, think of you guys, infrastructure-wise, is the tail of the dog. Right? That is the last part. Infrastructure is the last part of the problem. So the next part of the problem were my operations guys. Right? You know, what are we doing here? And when I started asking them about data, I realized they have spent more time with their enterprise data warehouses in the last 20 years than they have with their families. So for me to go and tell them that, you know, there's all these new tools available around data and data analytics, they were not that respectful. So then I went to the data scientists, and they were completely disconnected from the reality of business and what they did every day. So I would Slack a guy and I would hear back from him around noon because he had slept in because he was working on a cable competition for Mercedes. Well, we don't work for Mercedes, right? We have a lot of problems we have to focus. And then the nose of the dog, which is the business guys, right, had all gone through presentations from IBM or SAP or Microsoft, and they were wowed by data science and artificial intelligence, right? So you ask a machine a question, and the machine would answer their question. So they left the meeting thinking, all I need to do is write my question on a little 5x7 card, and I'll send it to the emerging technology guys. And, you know, it's Tuesday, and hopefully, you know, I saw how quickly Watson did their thinking. So, you know, maybe by Thursday, my question will have to be answered, right? So in my space, I have all of these different types of people that have different expectations around what data can do for them, right? And it's truly a challenge because Ron and I were talking before about like large organizations. Because structurally, I'm an ex-Wall Street guy. It's all about how you're getting paid. So when you go to somebody and you say, hey, look, for the last 20 years, you sold this product. And this product has had a data stream attached to it. And part of your compensation is you selling that data stream in a straight line to your customers. And a guy comes along and says, hey, look, from an enterprise perspective, from a value creation perspective, from where I think everyone in this room knows the world is going, from a platform perspective, would it be much better for us to take our data sets, put them together, throw governance around them, and allow you guys and our customers to interact in ways we can't even foresee, right? The guy's reaction is like, how am I going to get paid, right? So you have a corporate structure problem, which is fundamentally like a giant headache, right? So my days are spent, as sadly as this sounds, kind of keeping these various factions generally moving in a direction of data, right? And there are days where, frankly, I totally want to quit, right? Because it is a headache. But the flip side of that, where I spend the other half of my day is on blockchain, right? So that's actually why I joined Nielsen, was to work on blockchain with a guy who is a technical visionary. Again, compliment to you. If you combine what we can do with data, with what blockchain can do, and you start adding with the Internet of Things, we not only, financial services, I feel deeply, are going to reorient themselves, like in a fundamental way. In 20 years, we're not going to understand. We're going to look back the same way I look back on getting a phone call from my girlfriend in a dorm room and somebody had to hand me the payphone, right? We're going to look back on financial services the same way. That is kind of why I continue to do it, because it is going to be totally different and totally awesome.
One of the other things we were talking about, and we've been working on that for a long time, was this. You mentioned that the operational guys, have their own platform, and then the data science is a completely different platform. Do you see a need there to combine, to actually taught the same language?
Yes, yes. So what I'm advocating internally, so the answer to the problem that I articulated with the various silos is for every valuable data science problem we have, and it needs to be driven by the business. So we need to kind of say to ourselves, why are we asking this question, and why are we going through the hassle of trying to find an answer? If the answer is, it's just neat to find it out, not going to do it, right? We have other valuable data science projects to pursue. But if a business guy says, look, I can really generate revenue, or I can better serve my customers if we do X. So I have a business expert on the front end. I've got a data scientist who needs to be educated, so I'm really glad that you're doing what you're doing. No, because seriously, the data scientists do not understand business, right? They are mathematicians who are excellent at math, but they don't understand business drivers. And so now I've got a subject matter expert working with the data scientist. And in the background, I've got, and this is a huge skill set gap, right? This is where I feel that we don't have anybody covering, is somebody to take the data science results and actually productionize them on a platform. Because the technology, bluntly, is not hard, right? There's a lot of technology. Your technology is wonderful. There's technology. Technology is not the problem. The problem, for me at least, is a process problem. And then that last mile of getting the valuable results productionized so the business can actually see the fruits of their labor. I have, because everyone tries to sell us everything, somebody did a presentation the other day to me, and only 15% of data science projects actually make it to production, right? But why is that? You know, if somebody said it doesn't make it to production because after we explored it, right, there was no value. But we all know data science is in process and done by really smart people. So there's no way, after a lot of time and effort, a smart person is not going to be able to pivot the thought process to create value. So 15%, you know, do the math. 85%? Told you, not a math guy. 85%, right, are failing for reasons unrelated to the merits of the problem. Right, that's terrible.
It's productionizing the data science, bringing it to the operational part that we see it all over the place. Actually, this is exactly the number that Gartner is using when they talk about the successful projects. And it's that complexity in the process, and actually also in technology that we see.
Yeah, and the risk you run is that the business guys get frustrated, right? Because unless you're in a really big place where you can hide away and not be held accountable for time, right? At some point, someone's going to say, you've been talking about this for 3 years, right? You spent $3 million, and you're no closer to giving me value than the day you started. Dude, what do you do here? Right? And if I don't have an answer to that, then frankly, I probably shouldn't be working on it. So it's a challenge.
So, Michelle, we just need to make sure that you put it in the curriculum of
Yes,
the program.
please. Help.
Productionizing,
Yeah.
not just stay in the science part, right?
Yes, that's where we have business in our degree name. It's the Master of Business Analytics. So we do make sure that our students are great communicators and can work with the business folks on every team. I just wanted to, it's a really good point about the value add. I wanted to give a really good example recently that was published in the Wall Street Journal by our faculty director, Professor Dimitri Bertsimas. He developed a new optimization algorithm for the Boston Public Schools, which optimized the bus routes that were serving the entire school district of Greater Boston. And the new algorithm helped to save the Boston Public Schools over $10 million. But when this came out in the Wall Street Journal, guess what happened? All the workers who drove the buses and their family members, there was a huge amount of backlash because they were like, hang on, now there's a computer deciding my job and all these people are getting fired because of this new optimization algorithm. So that's one thing that business side has to take into consideration is the impact of data science and optimization on the real world.
And AI in general,
Yes.
I mean, this is a rich topic there. So, JD, you wanted to say something?
I was thinking I want to just say something here about instructor value from data. And in the consumer space, we have this problem where we want to get data from device manufacturers, so we can produce more variable ratings, and then the manufacturers are asking for more sales data, and we dominate the value rating. So it's kind of a big dead end for the last 4 years. Companies are hoarding data produced by these devices. They want millions of dollars for a company like Nielsen to buy it and then find value in it. And it's not something we can do because we don't know what the value is. So we've been working this program for quite a while, and what we've decided to do instead is to launch what we call a connected partners program. So it's something that's been now available for about a year, and we're now having the IoT part of it. And it's basically companies that have data that they've been collecting for a while and now been able to sell or try value from. We can make it available to Nielsen, and we also make it available to them, or our data that we use for our own products. So we combine the two together, we can create new businesses, create new value from that, and then we rev share. The business that comes out of it. So it could be a Nielsen business that's using that third-party data, or it could be a startup using Nielsen data to certainly make their data worth something to the industry. And Nielsen reference data is especially important in this space because that's the common language used by everyone to produce insights and products in the consumer side.
So you've raised like a problem that we have to sort through, right? So who actually owns our data, right? So again, because I'm financial services, I look down the city, right? There's been a pitched battle between financial services and markets on who actually owns market data, right? Because really the people who place the orders create that data stream that exchanges then turn around and sell to the very people who sent them the orders and make a ton of money, right? So who owns the data, and then what can we do with the data? And to me, as I think about the future world, especially in my space, the real value in that data, again, is allowing people to interact with each other. So where is that line between me sharing anonymized data with a group of people to alert them, right, to each other, that there may be an opportunity, and a person who says, no, that's a proprietary trading strategy that I have, and I don't want to play in that space, right? So it's a complicated.
So everybody talks about owning data, there's no value in owning data, that's what we want. I think what really matters is what are the rights to the data. Once you have rights to it, you can create value from it, and then the value created, what you own. It's not the data itself, it's the value created.
But that 85% number is really interesting. I would think of the financial services as even worse. And the reason for it is, there's all the buzz that we have, machine learning, AI, data science, it is created a very, very high expectation to senior management. They don't really know about it, they didn't study it, and I think in some ways they're hoping that these algorithms and these machines will actually be able to help their business. I think in reality what ends up happening is people have ideas that, I got some really cool data and we've got these really smart quants, maybe we put them together and we could actually come up with something. But that's not going to lead to a successful project, and that's what I'm guessing is some large percentage of it. But the one thing that I have seen though is when you do have a successful project, when you actually do predict something or prescribe something, in the financial industry, it's shut off. It's turned off immediately. You hit the sore spot when you could actually do that. The other thing in the financial industry, people can't share their data. So this is where actually entitlement, security, and whatnot become really important. Right? You have all these product areas, and believe it or not, two people could be sitting right next to each other dealing in different products. They're not allowed to see each other's clients, each other's trades, etc. So how do you allow them to move forward with interesting things to do with the data or things that are productive for them, and also protect the data and entitled to those who actually should be able to see it. So, I think again, we don't see the right questions. I think the skill set's wrong. Right, the data. If you let the data scientist lead, and not the person who is the business person lead, you're going to end up with issues there. But I think in the end, though, what they do dream of is this world where all their data is in one place and it's all correct, it's all accurate, and they want to be able to do whatever the future actually holds for the algorithms that are using data.
So you touched the point of sharing data, that today is quite impossible and requires a lot of effort, a lot of resources to actually anonymize and then share. So do you see there, I mean, if there is a solution that will allow that secure data sharing where you see what you're supposed to see and your colleague who's sitting on the other side will see what he's supposed to see, and you're actually accessing the same data set and something does it for you. This is something that will change the way people work dramatically.
Oh yeah, I think it's critical for future devices, future storage, future processes. It's inevitable. If you can't do that, you're not going to be as successful school. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, this is all going back to the right. Who has right data? And when we talk about consumers need to be in the equation. They need to know who's using the data, they need to have a say in who's using the data. The reason this has not been offered to consumers yet, or in very minimal forms, is because it's not overhead. It's a lot of work to manage. And I don't think it's a problem that it was really really think about. There's somebody else to solve it for them. And there's a lot of conflict of interest. Do you trust Google to manage that for you? Do you trust Apple? Maybe trust Nielsen because of the party that define it. But even there, it's assuming a lot. It's putting a lot of pressure on somebody to do that. And personally, I think that control needs to be given to the user and what makes them do the work themselves. And that's what AI comes into play. You need to start thinking about using AI to manage data rights for you. A data assistant, if you think of it. You have already personal assistants in your home with devices like Amazon, Equinix, they do great things. But now we need to extend that concept to managing the privacy, managing the data. Deciding who can access the data based on the knowledge that device has about you as an individual. So it's going to be your personal data property.
It's beyond just the individual, it could be where they're located. So one of the interesting problems that we had was that you could have a trader in Hong Kong, a person stationed in Hong Kong, is allowed to see the client name on the trades. If they came to visit New York and they wanted to check on their blotter, they're not allowed to see the client name in New York. So you take a look at the entitlement to those data, it actually has locality involved as well. So it becomes a lot more complicated than just a person.
Funny enough, this is exactly the example that I give when I sell my product, but we're not talking about it tonight. I mean, I think we've got a few more minutes. What does it say?
Audience questions.
That is what I was going to say. Thank you. So, Ed.
Hi. Hi. This is a question for all of you. I mean, as we start to see adoption of more complex architectures such as edge computing, the problems around data governance and data security are going to become even more challenging. How are you all thinking about how are you going to solve the issues around having applications that are running in distributed locations and data governance issues that aren't just confined to one locale but actually may be global. And particularly as you deal with edge data centers, somebody like Guida. I mean, how do you guys have a handle on some ways that you might be able to at least solve some of these issues?
Sure. Not that there's a magic bullet, but architecture is a key component from the beginning, right? So having certain sets of workloads reside in a single tenant sort of private instance. Which may be your compute, potentially other remote storage at the edge. Typically, is something that we're seeing a lot more of. There's still private connectivity issues that you sort of want to figure out. So to answer your question, it's a key component. What Equinix has done is start to put together teams of folks that are early on in their customer engagement to make sure that things are architected correctly.
So for us in consumer space, it really means complying to the local rules and regulations. GDPR in Europe is the SLA to have an So that's where all energy is going to comply to these impossible to implement rules.
Other questions?
hands in the back of the room there.
I guess my question relates closest to what JP does. I'm in advertising and operations, so my job is digital analytics and operations. And problems that we're trying to solve for are data aggregation, as far as like integrating like seismic with other data like Kenshu. And the other part of that is attribution, connecting the online and offline sales and branding clients with revenue goals. So I just want to know if you have any solutions to that, or what direction you go to do those type of things. So I guess the aggregation and attribution.
So what makes Nielsen unique is we have panels. So we have a source of truth. This is how we do attribution. We have data scientists, PhDs that analyze consumers in a very carefully chosen to represent just population as a whole. So we use that to calibrate the email we get from our partners. We get data from Facebook, Instagram, Guida, everything. If that data can be skewed towards some demographics, our panel does the way it looks like, and we calibrate that. That's what makes us unique. And that's not something we just do in void. We're audited by industries. We call the MRC, the Ratings Council, which is all our clients, audit their own processes and their own data. So the source of truth is audited and certified by our clients, so they know it's as good as mine as well. So we are effectively, by doing that, we become currency in the industry for example.
There was a question in the back, right?
Yeah, the hands up right there.
There's still food over there?
Hi, I'm Richie from Basecamp. Michelle, earlier on you were talking about that a lot of companies are really desperate for all these data scientists. So what are the big skills that are in demand? Like what's missing from the existing workplace?
Yeah, so the question was what skills are missing. I think what we talked about before is really being able to connect the business side with the data science side is the skill set that's missing. We can always train students to sit behind a computer and code for hours, but the skill set that we're really trying to build at MIT is to create the next leaders in business and in data science. So leaders who are not just great at communicating, but are also ethical, and to prevent these data security and these data privacy issues, we also have a module that teaches our students ethics and what is how to prevent security and privacy issues in the first place. So I think that skill set is missing from a lot of education right now. A lot of education is just focused on teaching R, teaching Python, teaching SQL, and not as much on the communication side. But for MIT, we also, of course, teach those skills. We teach optimization. Our core coursework is probability, stochastic processes, optimization, and machine learning and AI. But we made a point to add the communication and ethics modules to our curriculum.
So business processes, we heard from David.
But all in the one, I love that you said ethics, right? Because at some point, what usually does not come into our conversations is really, should we be doing this, right? And somebody needs to take a step back and be trained, I think, early on into the sensitivities of what we're actually doing and have some level of judgment. If not be the decision maker and say, no, we shouldn't do this, but at least be able to articulate that little voice that you hear kind of in the back of your brain, you shouldn't do this. So I'm glad you're doing that.
It's really interesting. I mean, I've worked with many clients in my career, and some of them, actually most of them have been pretty good. I think most recently, though, I've been working with someone who's really impossible. And I'm doing a project that they tried to do 2 years ago. And the project ended up failing. And I think it was because the business person didn't understand, didn't know, became frustrated. The technologists decided to do what they thought was best. And, there was just a complete mismatch, it just went over the business person's head, or over the business person's head, however you want to think about it. And I'm working with this person again. I'm working on a project that might be a quarter of the way done. I don't know if I'll be successful, But I do know that it requires a lot of active listening. It requires, I have to go in with a flak jacket because I just get shot and beaten up all the time for the most simplest things. And so I do think that the communication is really key. How do you interact with the business, and how do you get them to feel as though they're coming up with the solution really while you do your craft?
I think when we talk about ethics, it's important to understand that conflicts of interest play a big role. Companies are there to make money. Google says that's not evil. Eventually start, which is a point where it won't work if you start doing things that may not be always for the commercial mission. So it's when we're talking about data, it's a personal data, data like the Equifax data. It's very important that the data be not controlled by a for-profit or an organization that sells something to consumers. It has to be a relation that is there to protect consumers and build this education and ensuring that the privacy of the consumers is paramount and ultimately is used to deliver value to them. Nielsen, we think we're one of these companies because we want some engaged consumers who just the regular industry to exist and not be there today. Industry of advertising support TV and radio and the web and ultimately IoT. Something that makes the industry much better than it would be otherwise. There's been, these studies have shown that if you allow consumers to pay for everything, the market would be only about 20% of its current size. Take the home security market, for example, penetration has been 20%, not 20% for the last 2 decades. Everybody wants home security, there's a lot of money to subscribe to it every month, but 80% of consumers are not buying it. On the other hand, look at a service like Guida. We offer a equity service where it's ad-supported, one that's fully ad-supported, one that you pay $50 a year to get the free service. 20% of the customers pay $50 a year for no ads, and the other 80% pay for free. So if you don't have an ad-supported business, you're literally missing out on 80% of the consumer market.
Another question to that?
I have a question for Mr. Harris about blockchain. You mentioned blockchain. Yeah. I was wondering what problems you're trying to solve with blockchain that are not solved with traditional databases, whether it's SQL or NoSQL databases. Basically, what do you see as the advantage of blockchain? Because I've heard a lot of talk about blockchain in the management industry recently.
Right, so think of blockchain as essentially two old technologies. There's a distributed databases, which have existed for a very long time, and then cryptographic methodologies that also existed for a very long time. So what blockchain has done is it's taken those two things and created what I think is a disruptive innovation. Right, so it's not, and you heard it a lot in the very beginning, like blockchain is out there, a solution looking for a problem. That is exactly true, right? But what is a disruptive innovation is a innovation that allows new business models to arise. So the way we look at blockchain, or I look at blockchain, is think of it like the internet in 1997, right? It's foundational, right? And people use the internet for a purpose that was very specific to solve a problem, like communication, right? Over time, new businesses emerged on the internet because the internet enabled it. Blockchain is going to be exactly the same, right? So it's a whole lot less about what can I solve today, and a whole lot more about what can I enable. So to kind of answer your question kind of a little bit directly, and what we're using it for, is we're starting to enable privately held companies to maintain their shareholder list in a digital fashion. That solves regulatory problems, it solves legal problems, and as these companies grow up, private companies, right? Because publicly traded companies already have shares that are issued. So shares that are already existing, you're kind of in this weird world where you have existing and non-existing, right? But privately held companies that are new, right? You're enabling them to do something in a different way than what existed before. Because they're new, they're not bound to any sort of legacy ideas. And depending on, unfortunately, we are this, right? We give them regulatory infrastructure to actually meet some regulatory needs that they have, and blockchain will let them move forward.
I think the reason blockchain is everything because it enables people to automate trust. The entire economy is built on trust. If you don't trust, you already cannot do business, and there's a lot of overhead in the economy just to ensure that trust chain is in place. Blockchain is going to bring down the cost dramatically, and we're enabling for us, for example, in data business, enable for us to get data from third parties that we can trust, not having a ton of audit layers on top of it, and reduce the cost of the business.
There's a question here.
Wait, we have a question in the back.
Microphone is there already?
Yeah, the microphone is there.
Yeah, hi, hello, right here. I have a question. It's more like a general question, but it's twofold. In highlights of the recent events that's happening, my question would be in terms of like the data governance and what the ethical responsibilities corporations would have towards, in terms of the data held in like big repositories, either in the corporate sector or the government sector. So first thing I would like to announce is that, I don't know if you heard, but the US CBP, Customs and Border Protection Patrol, they have announced that they are going to check for all social media accounts of all US immigrants, green card holders and natural citizens like me, okay? So the question, I guess, is how much, I understand that in terms of security, government has to sift through data, but how much is enough in terms of like, how much can they scrutinize and how much the corporations will hold the data and say, you know what, this is the red line, we can't give more to you, I'm just kind of going back towards the San Bernardino case with the Apple iPhone thing, The second one is in terms of the Equifax hacking, that's a major thing, like, half of the US population, all of them, the whole history has been leaked online, how much responsibility and what's the ethical guidelines the corporations must need? You guys are like, I wouldn't say like the major place, but you guys are pretty big in terms of relegating the rules and whatnot. What kind of influence they can have on the big government and the big corporations? You know what? Let's try to stand up for these people, the middle ground over here, so that they are not abused. That's my general question to you guys. Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, I think blockchain is a very big role there to ensure that trust is in place. When data storing can be used, unless it's true. I also think that the Equifax breach should be handled in the same way as the credit card industry deals with your number. If you use a credit card number, you get a new social security, a new credit card number. Why not get a new social security number? So I think that's probably the safest thing to do short term. And then I would also put in place multi-factor authentication whenever you try to use the data.
Yeah, I was just going to say, to me, not being able to protect data and have a trust around a company utilizing your data, for me is like a non-starter. Right? Because our business fundamentally, we're an intermediary, right? We don't interact in the financial services market. We allow other people to do that. So if there's a question about our ability to safeguard data or our ability around trusting us with your data, right? And not only is it, am I telling you how I'm using my data? Someone needs to ask, does that guy really understand my words? Right, and so to me, those two things are really paramount for a business. Now, I think the sad reality will always be that if there's money to be made, people are going to figure out how to make it. And so hopefully, and again, I'm not an expert, but
this is a panel of experts.
Yeah, I know. I'm in the wrong place. I actually didn't get any of the questions right in the beginning. I was really in trouble. But fundamentally, what I hope happens is that people who have data, like us, you and I, control our data, right? And we can opt in and opt out of things, and decide. Like I use Stride because I work out, right? I've decided on balance. I want the world to know what I do because I like comparing myself to others. I don't have to do that, right? So people should hopefully, as we develop our tools, and blockchain I think actually may have a role in this in the future, is we will be in control of our data, right? And we're not going to be, in an unbelievable world, right? Not only am I in control of my data, I can actually monetize my own data if I choose, right? Because I'm not totally on board. I agree with you on a broad level that there's value only in data after you extract it. Not all data has value. But for me, my data has value to somebody, right? And somebody's using my data in some manner to profit from it. I need to understand that and participate in that.
In your industry, there's already value in some of the data. In consumer space, there's none to the consumers pay for everything. That's what I said.
Yeah, Michelle.
Just reminded me, so I think I agree that you should be able to control your own data, but some data you can't control that you create. So I recently met with a company, I think also an Israeli startup, that figured out using satellite data how to map out where all the cargo containers were shipping to each port city and figuring out which containers were coming from which countries. So that kind of data they can take from satellite imagery, and it's a matter of what you do with that data. The cargo containers don't control that data, so maybe there should be some kind of governance on how to use, how governments sell that data, or how that Israeli company is going to use it.
Well, look, to take it an inch further, because I actually am pretty passionate about this. I mean, think about the trading advantages credit card companies can gain, right? So you're a credit card company. You're not only seeing the macro picture, right? So you can draw a conclusion of where the economy as a whole is going, but you can also drill down to individual companies and draw trends based upon people's behavior at a store level. I mean, the trading data and informational advantage that you can garner, right, is enormous, right? You'll make a fortune. So somebody needs to kind of step back, and I'm sure people have stepped back and said, look, there's a Chinese wall between our trading arms and our credit, because this would, in fact, that would cause a lot of problems, right?
Yeah, you're going to end up in a world of regulation. I mean, but back to, your question, you're coming into the United States or some other countries, checking your social media. I mean, abuse of power should come as no surprise. I mean, the U.S. government and Australia and the UK have been collecting data for, well over half a century, probably even longer. So this stuff shouldn't be a surprise. I think it's though also interesting that people are surprised to find out that colleges are not letting their kids into school because there's a picture of them drinking a beer on their Facebook. You signed up for this thing; it's free. The Facebooks and the Googles of the world are just extracting the data for free. I don't know what will cause them, or what will create a shift where they won't, Google and Facebook will pay us for the data. I don't think it's going to happen. But one story that I found interesting, I found a complete violation of my privacy was I just finished up paying for my daughter's college. So I'm going in this semester, she goes to UVM, and I searched for UVM billing, and I've been doing this for the past 3 years. And all of a sudden, Google popped up all the payments that I made to UVM over the past 3 years. Wow. In my search results, as though this was like, who else is seeing this? They have everything that I paid to UVM over the past 3 years. So, is that legal? My guess is that we're going to have a hard time with regulation. That is probably curb some of it, but I wouldn't expect that.
The Ministry of Data, and we have data antitrust and all these regulatory environments.
I wouldn't be trying to do that.
Yeah?
Good job.
It's for lawyers. You have to be a lawyer for that.
And a despot.
So, Jean-Pierre, last comment, because, I thought this would be an hour, but there's the momentum and the inertia. We can...
Let's try to wrap it up by 8:30.
We can take one more question.
Okay.
Just wanted to add that if you put something on Facebook, you take the risk. You're responsible for that. Now, especially with IoT, you're in a world where you're getting watched everywhere. And there's no control over that. I think it's going to get a lot worse. So you need to work on it.
Goes back to the container example. So, last question. Who wants to be the lucky one? Front row.
So, hello. I'm not a technologist, but I'm a Wall Street guy. I just had a question, and I know it's not really focused on cryptocurrency or blockchain discussion, but what do you think happens to the business model of being an intermediary when you have peer-to-peer interactions combined with cryptography, do you view that as a threat to your business? For like clearinghouses, anyone who occupies that middleman space that's facilitating that trust? And what do you think the future, I guess, what do you think the future looks like for that type of transaction?
Clearing is Mr. Harris.
I was hoping somebody else would.
I told you.
No. So look, it truly depends on the market structure, right? And market structures are complicated. So in one part, right, your equity markets, right, are highly liquid animals. And people trade in them for a whole host of reasons. Some of those people trade in them not wanting an immediate settlement. Right? They want a settlement over time. Settlement over time introduces risk to the system. And so that new model needs to kind of be sorted out. Right now, regulatorily, I cannot offer securities broadly to the world without having them registered. Right? If it's a security under our regulatory regime, it's got to be registered with the SEC. So at the very immediate level, the answer is I don't see a tremendous amount of direct threat. Over time, though, right, as blockchain becomes foundational, like the internet, foundational, and business models emerge, I don't know that I feel comfortable saying that things won't change. Right? Because regulatorily, if I can demonstrate historical reasoning for a person who's in that space as an intermediary, but blockchain or the new business model causes that space to be now irrelevant and attacks on the system, then I can make a pretty strong argument that frankly it should go away. Right? The flip side of that a little bit too is even though I can enable intermediaries to act directly with each other, sometimes acting directly with each other is functionally a regulated event, right? So you don't want to wake up one day and realize that you're running an unregistered securities exchange, or you're an unregistered broker-dealer engaged in the offering of unregistered securities, and you have the SEC knocking at your door with the FBI, and you freak out. In some way, I used to be an SEC enforcement attorney, right? So I'm very old, right? I can't hold the job. Is my problem. But the reality is, you need to be able to work. But long term, I do think, and I really do mean this, right? My business, broker-dealer businesses, the clearing business, are going to be radically changed. Like radically changed. And if I knew what it would look like, one, I wouldn't tell you about this, right? And I would be building furiously to that point in time. Right, but the reality is you don't know because you can't really foresee what those business models are going to be like.
Excellent. So thank you, Ron, Michelle, JP, David, and Ron.
Thank you, Asaf, for moderating the panel. Thank you all for coming. Our panelists are up here for one-on-one questions. Feel free to help yourself and come talk to them right now.
I actually want to hear.